Hello, everyone. Glad to see you back here at Silver Tears Tarot, and of course, a warm welcome to anyone who's joining us for the first time. So, we're looking into another one that came from the inbox today, but it's kind of a culmination between three or four notes that came in. We've been seeing a third party showing up in these readings periodically, and so people were basically wanting to know what was going on with that and maybe when it's going to end, if it's going to end, because in some places it's not a person but more of a job, that sort of thing. So we're going to take a little bit more of a look into it, and the first thing that we'll kind of look at is really going to be just to understand a little bit more what's happening there, what's happening with that. So it'll be a general reading for the collective. Won't resonate with everybody, shouldn't resonate with everybody. But if it is you, if you're part of this collective and this is your story, then you may want to consider, like I've said in the past, you may want to consider checking some additional messages, and then you may want to subscribe. So we'll start out by looking at what is happening with this third party energy, just to kind of learn a little bit more about it. And I guess I want to focus a little bit more on what is the impact that this third party energy has. Because, like we've talked about before, it's not necessarily always going to be another relationship, although in some cases it definitely is. We've got the Page of Crystals. Okay, so crystals are earth energy. This is about a lesson that isn't learned. So a few readings back now, we did one on whether your person had learned a bunch of lessons and then had moved on to someone else to use those lessons. And one of the things that we learned about that was that they had absolutely received some new information with you. They had learned some new lessons, but they weren't necessarily in a position to put those into play just yet. They were still working on figuring some things out before they were going to be able to create that, before they were going to be able to actualize that. So this shows us that it's kind of still it's in a similar place. They are still not able to learn some of the lessons that they have around you and your relationship with them. They are also not really able to use what they have learned. So in some cases, the edges have started to come up for them on these lessons. And so they've started to really learn some things, just like in some cases, so have you. But putting that into play, putting that learning into play is not always the same thing, because pulling the edge up on a lesson is not the same as learning it. Okay, so we have the King of Wands, and this one is about feeling a little bit better about things. So, despite the fact that there is this sense of not really having learned all the lessons yet that need to be learned in order to be even successful with whatever this is. So, if this is their job and they're putting all of their efforts into it and they're kind of losing themselves in work, there is something here that would greatly enhance that experience to help them maybe not leverage it so heavily in their emotion, because right now they're kind of redirecting their energy to something that's in that third party place. um, if it's a relationship, this helps them to see a little bit more clearly, and then when they see a little bit more clearly, they're able to say, okay, this is or isn't where I need to be, let me make some corrections. And we can see over here maybe what is more likely to happen with that. But what we have here is them feeling a little bit more confident. It's almost a fake it like you make it kind of vibe. But they also feel like they are in this place for a reason. They're in this place for a reason. And so there is a feeling that they need to have whatever this experience is. Um, it's not a situation that goes especially well for them. So we've got the Three of Cups here, which is sometimes really the card that comes up to show us that there is third party energy. And again, there's almost always third party energy. It's just basically the other place that they are shunting their effort and their energy in an attempt in an effort to redirect it so that they can get out of dealing with some truths associated with you. I'll just say that. We've seen those come up in the recent past as well. So this is like a pit stop for them. It's not something that looks like it's going to go especially well here with the Three of Cups. With the Chariot though, we see that this lack of momentum and lack of learning momentum in them right now. That is something that comes through kind of strongly. So it means that the overall lesson maybe takes a little bit longer for them to learn. But that's the nature of these things. Part of this third party is it's going to slow them down and make ultimately make them realize why they need to learn the lesson a little bit more. Okay, so we have the King of Coins in reverse. We have the Knight of Swords in reverse. This is the Knight of Swords has that skittish feeling to it, but it's this sense of them getting all the way to the precipice of something and then being afraid to jump off and realizing, oh no, I haven't done this learning. I haven't gotten far enough. I'm still having a pit stop, and I no longer want whatever the nature of this third party energy. I'm not saying, hey, I don't want a job anymore. It's more, I don't want it to go this way. I don't want to do this way, and it may result in them deciding that they don't want to be in a relationship with this person if they're in a relationship with another person. And we've seen a lot of evidence of them seeing their life a little differently. So over the past few months, we've noted your person has been seeing their life differently. And it doesn't necessarily mean that a household has broken up, but they no longer feel the same way about it as they did. There's something really, really disrupted there. And it has created an issue within your person that is like an additional issue that they kind of need to work past as a result of what they've realized within themselves around this third energy. So I'm glad we're looking at kind of the nature of it. Just to get us a little bit, because not everybody's is going to be the same. So I can't have it come out and say, oh, it's definitely a person, because in some cases, it's not a person. In some cases, it's definitely not that energy, but boy, it's in there. There's a lot of super emotional energy that is kind of, it's, even if it's work related, there are other people's emotions involved, and the way they are kind of locked together and the way everything kind of swirls, it just lets you know it's not over yet. Whatever has to happen here, it has its own lessons attached to it, and they have not yet learned those. So with the Hanged Man in reverse, they haven't quite learned the lessons in this new environment either, the things that are going to be associated with that third party, the lessons that they have immediately spun off over here to go learn. But they are being caused to think of you again. This is the Six of Coins, and it is, they're thinking about that equal give and take of energy. And again, what did they do when they were presented with the opportunity that you gave them? Um, that is something that's weighing heavily on their mind. So it showed up in the month of March as something that was going to be an area of focus, but just because, the calendar flips over to April does not necessarily mean it stops being an area of focus. So they're being reminded once again of the nature of your relationship and some of what happened there. And it prompts them into some healing. So this is the Four of Swords. It's a card of healing. It's what you want to see in a situation like this, but it's probably not a very fun place for them to be right now, because they're learning some things that come from the energy, from the emotions around this third party situation. And they're going to be learning some things that are constantly drawing them back to you, but they're not there yet. They're still working through the lessons that they have to learn in this situation. So they are basically bouncing. Maybe you are too, because a few of you I've talked to, and I'm kind of getting this sense. They're kind of bouncing from lesson to lesson, and there's this constant underneath of you in as for them to compare as they're going through each lesson. So they've always kind of got this undertone with you as they're going through the healing. So that's a little bit about the third party itself, and kind of the impact of it, and what it is, what it does to their life, and kind of the role that it plays in their life. Let's see what's happening with it now, how stable it is, because that'll give you some insight on whether it's about to end, or, we see here it doesn't especially go well, but really that's not necessarily, like I said, if it's a job, it's not, oh, I no longer want to work, but they may no longer want that job, or they may no longer feel the same connection to that job, and they start doing it completely differently, and they end up, in a different environment entirely. If it's a person, they may no longer want that relationship. But the tricky bit is we've been seeing a situation where, at least for some of you, your folks are in a relationship, or they're potentially married with a family, and so there are things that are keeping it a little bit tougher as far as making that decision. We've seen that I can't make a decision card coming out, as well, on a fairly regular basis. So let's take more of a look into kind of how that is going, what the energy is with the third party itself. We looked at kind of what the impact was. Now, what is happening with it? What is the energy of it? Is it up? Is it down? Is it ending? Is it, we've got the Four of Acorns. Okay, so it is pretty status quo right now. It's fairly status quo right now. It's not moving very quickly. It's not like, I think there may be aspects of it moving quickly, because I say that and then I'm like, hold on. I think there's wind whipping around it in some cases, but some of those winds are going to be your person's emotions. We're going to like take a look at your person's emotions when we get into the extended, because one of the things that we're really not seeing here, and I thought it was interesting, is that we're not seeing as much of your person's emotions when we look at the impact over here. So it's almost like their emotions aren't as tied in. This is more about, they're thinking about a lot of things that they don't have figured out yet. So there's this sense of lack on their side because of what they don't have figured out, and they're kind of very aware that they're flying blind. But they're also being reminded of you in a lot of ways. So yeah, let's get in a little bit deeper with what's happening with it. How stable is it? It looks like it's not moving very quickly right now, so it is relatively stable, or at least nothing earth shattering is happening with it right now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to get into their emotions on it. Okay, it's giving them a break. This is a breather for them, like we were seeing before with the pit stop. The Three of Swords in reverse is giving them an opportunity to mend their heart. And I have the weirdest image ever. So people who have never darned socks around a light bulb will not get this. If that doesn't make sense to you, just bear with me or look it up. But when you have a hole in a sock and it's like a favorite sock, you don't want to throw it away, or you can't afford to replace it or whatever, you stick one of those old round light bulbs. So I know everything's differently shaped now, but you stick one of those old round light bulbs in it, and you take a needle and thread, and you have the hole spread out across the light bulb, and you kind of darn it up. That is essentially what this person is doing with their heart right now. That's like they've got their heart over the light bulb, and the light bulb isn't on. It's not. It's just presenting something that's hard for you to put the needle against, so that you can draw the two sides together very cleanly. And if you do it well, then you won't notice the construction when you're done, when you're wearing it, because it's up against your foot. So you want it to be as invisible and unfeelable as possible. That's basically the type of work that they're doing inside their heart right now. So this is good. This is something that increases the chances of the two of you coming back together and being able to really truly reconcile, being able to really reunite, if that's the course of direction. Because some of you are going to come together and say, I no longer want to be in this situation. I don't want this person anymore. I've moved on, whatever it ends up being. But some of you will. And in order for that to be successful, this really has to be done. So there's some good healing that is happening with this person as they're in this pit stop. However, the pit stop isn't going to last. There is something really unstable about it in the long term, I guess. Things aren't moving with it real heavily right now, so it feels pretty stable. However, it looks like it. Okay, here's why it's not stable in the long term. Here's the Ace of Swords. Again, this is our old friend that's here with us in every reading. And by old friend, I mean it's a sword, and it feels like it's not very comfortable all the time. So there is we've seen this in so many readings over the past few months. It's really been since January in particular. The Ace of Swords, often in the reverse, talking about something that hasn't quite been absorbed. It's a new truth that there's some resistance. around. Okay, so there's resistance around this new truth, and it makes it kind of difficult for it to truly materialize and blossom out. It's the real reason that your person isn't able to use the lessons that they've learned. They haven't been able to absorb them, because if you pull up all the edges on something, you've got these kind of uneven edges of things that you might be able to use. But you really need the whole. You really need the big picture. And so, without this truth being absorbed, they're going to have a hard time getting into that whole. However, it's a matter of them deciding what they control and what they don't control. So one of the things that they like over here is that they feel like they have some control over the situation with this third party energy, whereas with you, they feel a little out of control, and that's terrifying. One of the things they need to do, though, as they're looking at it, is they're going to do, not only are they going to have to absorb this new truth, and that's going to create a lack of stability in this energy with the third party, but they also are going to figure out what they truly control and what they truly do not control, and that's going to be significant. So with this 10 of Wands here in reverse, it's kind of it functions as a little bit of a reset for them. And so they end up learning a little bit more about their situation and what walking away even truly means. So I know we want these. They want to move toward happiness. And so this is a really tough thing for them, because, and I felt it over here, there's this sense of them constantly wanting to get to the place that is happier, and they're constantly remembering what they've had in the past. They're remembering with this card, remember the 6 of coins, they're remembering how things went with the two of you in the past. It essentially is going to shut down the emotion that's happening, that's keeping them bound to their third party situation. So with this Ace of Cups in reverse, we have the energy to that being shut down, kind of like if you flip off a switch and all of a sudden there's not electricity flowing to something anymore, it stops. But it's not immediate. It's like if you've ever had an appliance or a cord or something that has a little bit of a little light on it, and when you pull it out of the wall and you unplug it, it doesn't immediately go dark. Like the energy has to continue to flow out of it. There's a little bit of the sense of that. So the plug will be pulled, and the emotion will stop there. But there's an issue with that, because they're going to have to restart it in order to do whatever they want to do, and they're not having anything to do with that right now. They are more interested in looking where they want to go. And they have okay, so we've got the Page of Wands in reverse, the 8 of Cups in the upright, and the 2 of Cups in the reverse. So when they shut down their emotion from this situation with the third party or the third party energy, or they change jobs or change what's happening at work, there's going to be this sense of them being almost depressed, worn out, need a breather. They're coming out of what is essentially a breather into needing a breather, because it's not really the right attitude to think that they're going in and getting a breather, even though it sort of looks like it, just because they're taking a break from the situation with you. They've gone from the frying pan into the fire a little bit, and it's going to weigh on them when their emotions shut down as a result of it. And so they're going to get to a place where they don't necessarily want to reach out. They don't necessarily want to do much else, but they will be inspired. They will be inspired to finally start learning one of those lessons that was constantly coming to us in the previous readings about figuring out what they truly want. And this is where they're going to start to figure out there are some truths that I've been ignoring for a while. There are certainly some things here that I thought I had control over that it turns out I don't. But until they come to those realizations, I don't know that it has much impact on you. So it looks like this third party energy does kind of get wrecked in some point at some point, and they start to realize some things, um, and want to move toward their happiness. There's the only drive they really have at this point is moving toward their happiness. They don't want to be partnered up. They don't want to be coupled up. They have to work through that because their emotions are going to be shut down. So there's a period of them kind of just hanging out there and floating before they are able to reconnect and re-energize. So keep that in mind as well. It's not like if they go straight from this third party situation back to you, it's only going to be for another lesson. So please keep that in mind. So if you do get contacted and they say, "Hey, I just left my spouse," um, you want to be careful because this may be them bouncing from lesson to lesson. There is this space in here where they are a little bit emotionally shut down while they figure out how to reorient before they turn the engines back on. That's not bad. That's time that is needed for them, and it's part of their personal journey, because just always remember they've got that personal journey going on too. Okay. And of course, like I said, we're going to take a look at the emotions that they have around this. We'll also take another look at I think we want to look a little bit more deeply into the impact overall, maybe the impact on your relationship that this third party situation is having. But first, let's go into that tried and true. What can you be focused on? Because one of the things that we are constantly drawn back to in these readings is your lessons. The reason that these people in this collective are here in a lot of cases is to figure out, but what can I do about this? How can I start feeling differently? In a lot of cases, it's like swimming. You're sitting there and you're like, how can I not be here? And you just kind of have to start moving in a direction, and eventually you'll be far from there, but it's amazing how long it takes sometimes, especially if you got some tides and undercurrents pulling you along in a different direction. But if you're going with them, that's a feeling not to be missed. Okay, so we've got the Hanged Man in reverse as we look at what you can best be focused on. So you have the Hanged Man in reverse, and so does your person with regard to this third party. They're over here in this third party situation, whether it be work or a person or whatever it is, and they haven't come to a realization yet. It's an important realization. The same is true of you. May not be the same realization, probably won't be the same realization, but one of the most important things for you to recognize is that your lessons are not done yet. And it's a lot of you are probably over there thinking, of course they're not really ever done. And that's true, but it's not really what I meant. Because what I was thinking is lessons, particularly with regard to this, that feel like they've calmed down, that feel like they've come to an easier place, have still got some difficult spots in them that you'll need to work through, but you're going to be better prepared to do that. Look for them to come from some potentially unorthodox places. And actually, we've got the Hierophant here. So these lessons are going to basically line up with the Three of Coins. These lessons are basically going to line up and come to you, but it's not going to be super obvious how to address them, and you're going to have to get in and use your resources. These are things that could be social. They could be there are a lot of different ways that these lessons could pop up for you. So just be aware. You've got some lessons coming your direction. Look for the piece around the adult temper tantrums. And so we've got the Moon card here in reverse. Remember, some of you have been watching this for a while, and you'll have heard of the adult temper tantrums. I can't remember if they come up in the YouTube reading or in the extended readings that come after, because sometimes those extended readings that come after get pretty epic, and all of a sudden we're in these deep conversations, and I'm like, did everybody see that? I mean, because it's always a smaller group that ends up in those extended readings, and so it's like they're pretty targeted as a result. It's the smaller the group that is coming toward the reading, the more targeted the messages. And so some of them get kind of deep. But one of the things that we've talked about is kind of this adult temper tantrum concept, wherever it came up. And it was about like when little kids have a temper tantrum, it's because they don't understand how to process the emotions that are happening, and they kind of flip out and they become very unsure of themselves. They later will look at the situation and say, I regret handling it that way. This is going to be something that you can no longer unsee. So be prepared for that. It's only kind of liberating because it's painful to see, but it is liberating. I shouldn't say only kind of. You have your self-worth that you're continuing to guard here and apply to yourself. If you continue to build your self-worth the way that you are, you're going to find that it kind of multiplies, and becomes a force in and of itself within you that helps to sustain you in a great many situations. So, for those of you who have this runner chaser dynamic, but you've stopped chasing, this is what I'm talking about. A lot of that was born of self-worth that you've already been building, and you doing this and being aware of it helps you to cultivate it even more. So there's something very special specifically in the message for you about that. Go ahead and soak up the good that comes from that. You're also going to be balancing your masculine energy, okay? So the Emperor card is, it's all about that divine masculine energy. And definitely in most of these situations, when we look at your relationship, you're playing the role of the divine feminine, your person is playing the role of the divine masculine. Most of you, that's who it is. I think we've got a couple divine masculines that watch the page or watch the channel as well. But with this, the Emperor is really that balancing of the masculine energy within the person, because it has to be balanced across the relationship like we've talked about, but it has to be balanced within the person. And this is something that you're going to be in the process of doing. The key, the linchpin, is going to be this piece that's actually part of more your feminine energy, but it's in that self-worth area. That's where it's, something's going to click for you here. Watch for that, and when you do see it, grab it by the tail. You are going to feel this is really great. This is the Knight of Cups, and it's a new feeling. You're going to basically look for an opportunity to explore a familiar feeling but in a new setting, and have it be incredibly safe and feel clean and healthy. That's what that card feels like to me. It's like if you've never felt, and this is going to be a far out example because I need to make a far out example to make my point, but if you've never felt attraction without, also seeking somebody to give you all of their money, which no one does that really, but this is going to be a situation where all of a sudden you're seeking attraction, you're finding attraction, and it has nothing to do with that. I thought that might be a nice, safe one to make because I don't feel like that's what's happening within this collective. A lot of you don't need anybody else's money. You're your own person. Okay, so what else has come out here? We've got the Seven of Swords in the upright, which has to do with that self-trust that you've been working on building. This is still a specter hanging over you. There's still something here about your self-trust, and you need to really get in and examine it. Examine how you've been operating, examine how you tend to operate. This is something very special. It's an opportunity for you to learn a huge lesson. We're seeing it kind of all over this reading. So it's an opportunity for you to learn a huge lesson from potentially unorthodox means, but don't pass it by. It's going to be super helpful. It's also going to help you with your self-worth, which is going to help you to balance your masculine energy so that when you now come into this situation again, you're going to ultimately be running up against something that tests this with the Knight of Cups. You are going to be better able to have kind of a healthy approach to something that you once did not have such a healthy approach to. Holy, that is fantastic. I love everything that's coming out of this. So I know it sounds like lessons in hard work, and I'm sure it is. However, the good is very strong. What's coming out of this is very, very positive. So we looked over here at what was happening with your person and in their third party energy, what's happening there. We're going to look at it a little bit more deeply in the extended. We're going to look at your person's emotional ties to it and what the impact is on your relationship, because we kind of see the impact on their life here, which is significant. We see them going into a place of healing and thinking about the past with you. But let's see a little bit more the emotional impact as well as the impact on your relationship. So I'll either see you there in the extended reading or I'll see you in another one.